Okay, so I'm Simon Mishevich, and I've got a special guest with me today who is
Louise Mishevich.
All right, so partners in life, partners in crime, and etc. in business. We have got to tell you about stamp duty land tax. What the heck is going on? This is something that is going to hit you from midnight tonight. So if you are buying a residential property, you need to be aware that your bill tomorrow, which will be Thursday, after the budget announcement, is going to be an extra 2% of your purchase price. Louise, just talk us through the detail.
Well, it's truly a horrifying Halloween, quite frankly, people, for the 31st of October 2024. So, stamp duty land tax, what's happened? You probably are aware that there is a variety of rates that you have to pay. Unfortunately, if it is your second or more property, then you pay an additional rate over and above the standard stamp duty land tax, which up until today has to be 3%. Well, hold on to your hats, because overnight that's going to change to 5%. So kiss goodbye to an extra £2,000 for every £100,000 of property you're buying.
I mean, that's astounding. And let me tell you why that is astounding. Because one of the things that the government have been saying is UK property for UK people. Okay. And I understand that what they meant by that was to put their properties into the hands of everyday people to have it as a home. But let me tell you something that they did do that I'm shocked by. And that is, they was talking about pushing the stamp duty land tax for foreign owners from 2% to 3%. And they didn't. They kept it at 2%. But if you are a UK British person or a UK limited company buying property, your rate of stamp duty has gone from 3% to 5% on the extra banded rate. Now, I appreciate you don't buy the foreign surcharge, but a foreigner now looking to buy a property has got an advantage over you as a British person, a British limited company. Is that fair to say?
I think it is. And it doesn't even have to be just, as Simon's describing it, as British people. British people to us is defined as anybody living in the UK and resident in the UK. So basically, it feels very much like an advantage to non-UK resident individuals or businesses. Is that what they really wanted to do?
Yeah, I think that's a screw up, right? I think they've just messed that up. I think the whole point of putting the foreign surcharge in place was to say, right, we're going to prevent foreigners from buying property. What they've actually done is pushed it onto landlords to say, well, you pay the extra 3%, which is going to be a lot less landlords because of that. And we'll talk about the advantages that UK people can have in a second. But it does mean that now foreign investors are back in the game because they have a less stamp duty land tax, less competition from British people buying British property. And I think that's an appalling crime that the Labour Party have just done. Just going back to the UK side of things, this whole opportunity now, there is an opportunity. If you're buying residential property, you have got the banded rates, which could be anything from 0% to 15%. You've got the 3% SDLT rate, whether you're buying in your personal name, so 5% now in your personal name, or 5% in a limited company, by the way, as well. So you do need to think about that. The one thing I would say to you, some of the things you can look at is buy properties for that 6 or more properties, like a block of flats, bed sits that are in that one block, 6 or more. Why would that be the case?
Because under those rules, and they don't even have to be on a separate contract for each one, but if they are genuinely independent of one another, then they are all individual dwellings, and that means you can apply the commercial stamp duty land tax rates, which doesn't include this horrible new 5% rate. Happy days.
Yeah. And one of the other things that you talked about earlier is the type of property. So what kind of property would also not, even if you buy a flat with?
Well, if you're buying a property, for example, that has a shop on the ground floor and perhaps a residential flat or flats above, that's considered a mixed property. And yes, happy days, that's also classified under the commercial stamp duty land tax rates for the entire value of that asset. So yes, again, kiss goodbye to that new 5% rate. So there are still lots of opportunities out there. You've just got to be very savvy to know which ones are the ones to go for.
Yeah, and lastly for me is the opportunity to use permitted developments. So if you're looking to buy a commercial unit and convert it to residential, again, you'll be paying non-residential rates of stamp duty land tax. You won't pay the 5% charge either, and you've got a reduced VAT rate on your refurbishment from 20% down to 5%, even 0% in certain circumstances. So what I'm thinking here is that there's plenty of opportunities for you to make money. I just think that this 5% charge discriminates British people from foreigners, and it gives us still an opportunity to do things slightly differently to make money from residential property by doing conversions or buying different types of properties. But there's still plenty of money to buy by investing in property. Would you agree?
Absolutely. And again, just to clarify, British people is everybody resident in the UK. Whether you are from birth or you've moved to the UK, it does feel like you're now being discriminated against. But there are ways to level up that playing field for you guys.
Yeah, I mean, just talking about that point, if you're a non-UK resident, we are non-UK resident, if we want to buy a house because we're living in Spain right now, but if we want to move back to the UK, is it fair to say that we would have to pay the 5% if we're not there? I guess it will be the first property, so maybe not. But we'd have the foreign charge.
Yeah, it all depends. And yes, it's really, really unpleasant what they're doing.
But it could be where we got a buy-to-let in the UK and now we want to buy a home, we would be hit with a 5% rate as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So this does feel crazy. I get why they've done it. And if I'm being very negative about why they've done it, they realise they can make an awful lot more money of UK-based individuals buying UK-based properties than they can from the smaller proportion of individuals who are based outside of the UK buying UK properties. You are a bigger pool of fish, and they want to fish in the biggest pools they can to make as much money as they can. Now that's just my cynical perspective on it, but when you look at the numbers, it pretty much adds up.
And one final thing I would say on this is make sure you get some good tax planning around whatever you do going forwards, because landlords haven't been affected as much apart from the stamp duty land tax. We did separate videos for CGT, but one thing I would say to you is look differently at property and the types of property you invest into, because there's still lots of money. You just don't need to be sucked into this, we're going to charge you 5%. You don't need to be sucked into you are discriminated against foreign investors, which blatantly you are right now. So we're going to do a lot more analysis of this. I don't want to be doom and gloom about it. I'm just a little bit angry with their perspective of the way they've
done to treat people from the UK in the way they have.
Yeah.
But you know what? This is an opportunity for you to go and get that tax advisor you keep saying to yourself you need to get. And if you don't have one, well, you can come and talk to our business. We'd be only too delighted to help you circumnavigate these new laws in a really robust and effective way for you. That means you are paying the right amount of tax, not more.
Stay tuned for greater details coming up in the next days and weeks.